The Titanic Trap, when organizations' growth gets in its own way. I want to share something around this with you. You know, our past has taught us many messages, many learnings that we have, many pitfalls that we avoided, which we could have learned from and done things differently today. Many learnings, however, in the past are forgotten. We continue to make those mistakes, and I want to talk about and reinforce some of the learnings we have from the past disasters and catastrophe, which we still forget and continue to repeat them. When I look at a small company, which is nearly a startup, or a company that is in a nascent stage of starting up before it becomes a bigger organization or a big ship, it looks to me like a speedboat. And how is it that a speedboat function, or what are the key traits of a speedboat? It is very agile, very quick to move, perhaps because of the size, very quick to learn. A speedboat is very quick to learn to make adjustments given the direction. If it needs to maneuver quickly in right direction from left, it could do it very quickly. And it is very fast. And if a contingency comes across, a speedboat can react and respond very quickly. However, as the speedboat or a startup goes through the growth journey to become a big ship or a bigger player in the industry, there's some changes that happen. All these traits that a speedboat takes pride in, these traits start to disappear or go away. And the big ship becomes laborious to move, slow to learn, and react. Essentially, the agility that the speedboat took pride in, as it by itself became a bigger organization, disappeared. Why does that happen? Is it because of the size of the organization, just the fact that you're growing bigger, this is bound to happen? I would disagree. I think this happens because of the lack of ability of the organization to navigate the organization through that. And I wonder that sometimes in building desired solutions to support the growth of the organization, do we acquire undesired problems of stagnancy and makes it difficult instead? I call this the Titanic Trap. Do you know Titanic? It took more than 3 years for the whole Titanic to come together. More than 3 years. And it took less than 3 hours, 2.5 hours to be precise, for the entire ship to sink. This was the most luxurious linear, the largest ship, the most luxurious, best ever known linear in the world. It took it less than few hours to sink. What happened to this beauty? Why did this beauty sink? I call it the Titanic Trap of 3 C's: complacency, contingency, and complexity. And I think if you go back and reflect on some of these are essentially the key reasons why agility starts to disappear or fade away in organization as they go through the growth journey. Let me walk you through them. Complacency. Do you know when Titanic took off before it was about to hit the iceberg, the captain of the ship was given multiple warnings, at least about 5 to 6, that the iceberg is right around the corner and the ship might not be able to sustain it. The response of the captain was, as the investigation says, is this ship can never sink. And I don't know if you know, but when the ship was built, when the interviews happened, the makers of the ship claimed that even if God wanted to sink this ship, it could never drown. This ship is unsinkable. That overconfidence made the captain take no action. He ignored, and there were further warnings given to the captain to adjust the speed and direction of the ship basis the ice-cold weather, the weather conditions. He made no adjustments. He paid no condition. He went along to the weather as it did. And then what happened, as we all know, is history. I find synonymity of this in the leadership behaviors that we see in the organizations when our leaders become the victims of the past and they ignore intentionally or unintentionally the anticipated failures, the potential anticipated failures rather, that nobody has ever been immune to. You know, when Kodak filed bankruptcy, do you remember that? 2012? Kodak filed bankruptcy because it failed to anticipate or notice the digital making its way through. Microsoft and Intel, which did really well in their space of personal computing, lost significant market share when the mobile boat came in, when mobile started to make its wave. The question I want to leave you with is, what are you doing to proactively anticipate and prevent Kodak moment in your organization? Number 2, contingency. Titanic was built for the best, but never, or maybe hardly, prepared for the worst. Do you know that a significant chunk of space in the Titanic, which is meant to keep the speedboats or the lifeboats, was actually used instead to make corridors and walkway places for the passengers? In fact, even the passengers who got into the ship, because they had this huge, strong belief that Titanic is unsinkable, the passengers, the crew members of the ship were never, or were hardly taken through any safety drills. Another reason why so many casualties happened. I wonder, are we building our leadership for the best, but do we also prepare them for the worst? We get so lost in preparing for the best, making revenues, creating best of the products. But what do you know? The products maybe you're building to come out at the end of the year may not be relevant by that time. Maybe a competition that's waiting, hiding somewhere, comes out right there, brings something which is far more relevant and makes your product irrelevant. What do you do then? Titanic failed because it went ahead with a plan A. It had no plan B. So when contingency hit it, the plan A did not work, but it did not have a plan B. And then, rest is history. Test your assumptions all the time. The assumption based on which you're building your plans for today, do they hold good for the future as well? Continue to ask that question in all your discussions and conversations. Absolutely critical to avoid the Titanic trap of contingency. Number 3, complexity. A very common one, still a very common trap. Everybody knows about it, but everybody continues to make this big mistake on this one. Do you know the beauty that Titanic was? The design that it created, that design that made it that beauty that it turned out to be. That design added much to its complexity, making it the most complex ship ever. Eventually what happened, when the water splashed through the first few compartments of the ship, it was pretty much sustainable for the water to flood the first 4 compartments and not let the entire ship sink. It was prepared for it. But eventually, because it wasn't prepared, the first 6 compartments got flooded. But the casualties happened because the passengers could never find their way back to where the lifeboats were. Many passengers died simply because of that. The design was so complex, there weren't even navigation sign put through that the passengers could use to find their way back. One of the things we forget in creating huge complex design around processes and products are when the fundamental requirement of any good design is to be able to offer ease of navigation and simplicity. And if that is defeated, the product is of no good use. If you're creating significant time in administrative overload, perhaps you're losing a lot of time while the competition is getting ahead of you. So by the time you get your product out, you're irrelevant. I want to leave you with a question. Do you design your processes, hierarchy, technology that offer enough ease to your users? Because the market is not going to wait for your administrative overloads. Do your processes, like your performance management processes, your HR operations processes, your promotion processes, do they offer administrative overload of number of steps that the user needs to complete? Does your hierarchy only create a career ladder and promotion path for people, or does it also offer a faster decision-making process? If your hierarchy today is getting in the way of faster decision-making, perhaps there are things you need to change. Maybe the hierarchy that worked in the past is not relevant given the pressure that we are in. Agility and a longer hierarchy are nearly opposite to each other, unless you can design processes that can help organization navigate faster through those layers. So remember, and always ask these questions, are your solutions of today creating problems for the future? Complacency, contingency, and complexity are not going away if you continue to keep both of your legs in the present and then design and work. When you plan, you keep one leg in the present, the other leg needs to be in the future. And I want to leave you with the final framework, an integrated approach to address the 3C syndrome. It just brings the entire story together. Something that you can use and take away. Questions you should be asking are around these few elements that I want to share with you. Processes. Ensure that your processes are not complex, rather simple enough for people to action. As an example, if your performance management process, which is more intended to have a development conversation, if it is stuck in the steps and the processes people need to complete, you're defeating the purpose. Does your technology support the process to make it simple and easy? Remember, if your technology investments are driven by how many things you want to automate versus what experiences you want to create or what experiences you want to improve, you're going in the wrong direction. What individual behaviors leaders Are they preparing your leaders for today, or are you preparing them for the future as well? Remember, preparing them not just for the best, but preparing them for the worst as well. Your culture. Does your culture support the individual behaviors you want them to build? For example, if you want the leadership in the organization to take a lot more risk, but the moment they fail, your culture does not recognize it, they penalize them. Your culture needs to be able to support this. So your culture and the behaviors you expect of your leaders need to talk to each other. Hierarchy, I mentioned earlier. If hierarchy slows down decision making, if your hierarchy does not allow for empowerment, expect your leadership behavior, leaders to start making faster decisions. These things are not driven by behaviors alone. The mistake organizations make is we create a process system, we continue to expect leaders to behave differently, but the hierarchy, the structure, the processes do not support that. Your hierarchy perhaps might need to be relooked at. And your hierarchy and processes need to talk to each other. In summary, all these factors need to work in tandem to bring agility in organization. Any of these 5 elements in the framework, you use it in silo, you will, and then continue to complain about why the change doesn't happen. At the end, please remember, if your solutions are creating new problems, perhaps they're not the right ones. Thank you.